All right, thank you all for coming. Welcome to New International Student Orientation. My name is Kelsey. I work in the Office of Global Affairs. I'm an international student advisor. And this is my colleague, Akane. She's also an international student advisor and will be giving this presentation. On the screen there, you can see our colleague, Cameron. He's a program coordinator with us in the Office of Global Affairs, and he'll be monitoring our Zoom room. And Jeff is here as well. He is the executive director of the Office of Global Affairs. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and start with the agenda. This is kind of a rough time frame. We are planning about 2 hours, but we have some breaks factored in, so you can get up and walk around and get some water if you need to. We're going to start with welcome and introductions so that you all can have a chance to meet each other and get to know each other. Then we're going to get into the bulk of the presentation, which is broken down into 3 main sections. We're going to talk about cultural awareness and cultural humility because all of you are international students, which means you're new to a new culture. So we're going to provide you with some frameworks that are going to help you adapt and succeed here. We're going to then talk about academic understanding here at UW-Tacoma. It might be a little bit different, and so we're going to talk about how to adjust to that as well. And then finally, we'll talk about all of the amazing resources that UW-Tacoma has to offer you while you're a student here. That will wrap up the formal part of the presentation. And then we're going to do pizza and a campus tour. So we'll have pizza here, and then our student employees will meet us here. And they'll take you on a tour of campus, show you where all the good study spots are, where to get good food, all of that fun stuff. That part is optional though, so don't feel like you have to stick around. If you need to go at 3, that's fine. Okay, so learning objectives. We really just want to give you guys a chance to get to know each other first and foremost and get to know UW-Tacoma. So you get to know Akane and I through this presentation. You'll get to meet a colleague from one of our other offices who will be presenting, and we're going to introduce you to a bunch of other resources. I'm sure we're all a little tired of hearing about COVID, but we are still in COVID-19 times. So just some quick safety measures. Masks are recommended, but not required right now. We ask you to not eat during the presentation, but we're having pizza afterwards, so save your appetite. Hand washing and sanitizing stations are available. If you actually look back by the front door, that's a sanitizing station. And right outside the doors are the bathrooms where you can go wash your hands if needed. If you feel sick, you can go. If you felt sick and came, don't worry about staying because all this information is available in the ISSS portal. So that's kind of a general rule for UW-Tacoma campus. Don't push yourself to come to class if you're feeling sick. COVID's really serious right now, and we want to make sure you stay safe. And yeah, we'll have some breaks throughout the presentation, but please don't feel like you can't get up and go take a break if you want. This is a casual space, so take as many breaks as you need. Okay, we are going to start with a land acknowledgement. You might notice these at UW-Tacoma, and this might be kind of new to you, but we want to recognize here at UW-Tacoma that we are operating on land that belongs to the Native people of this country. So we like to take a moment before celebrations and presentations or workshops to just acknowledge that fact. So I'm going to read the statement. We recognize that all of us at UW-Tacoma learn, live, and work on or near the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people. In particular, we are situated on the territory of the Puyallup. As people of this occupied territory, we have a responsibility to acknowledge the land, the ancestors who have cared for this land since time immemorial, and all our Indigenous connections today. We also have the responsibility to acknowledge the histories of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed for the growth and survival of this institution. In light of this history, let us take active efforts to partner with our Indigenous community members and neighbors as we continue to work together as a community of learners, leaders, and educators. And this statement came from the Center of Equity and Inclusion, which is a department on this campus that you'll see. You'll hear a little bit more about them, and you'll get them pointed out to you during the tour. Okay, So let's do some introductions. We can do this just at your individual tables. So you can start by just saying your name or what you prefer to be called. Your pronouns, these might be a little new to you too. Pronouns are just a way to tell people how you want to be referred to yourself if they're not using your name. For example, my name is Kelsey, but if Akane is talking about me, I prefer she use the pronouns she, her. So when I introduce myself, I say my name is Kelsey, my pronouns are she, her. Where you're joining UW-Tacoma from, you can say your hometown or maybe the last city you were in. If you've been living in the US for a while, what university you transferred from or what city you came from, what you're planning to study. I know a lot of you are in the same cohort, so feel free to get creative with that. Maybe what you're excited about in the program. And then what is your favorite hobby or activity? And I'll give you about, it's kind of a big group at that table, maybe like 5 to 7 minutes to chat. All right. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on now. So we're gonna go into the next section of our presentation, which is about cultural awareness and cultural humility. This is kind of a longer section, and again, we're gonna have some time to have some discussions and get to know each other a little bit more, and hopefully have some deeper conversations. So please participate in this upcoming section. The idea is basically to give you a framework to approach adjusting to culture that you will hopefully find helpful. So we're going to start right away with an activity. And the question that I'd like you to share with your group is, what does home smell like to you? So kind of a strange question. So I'll give you an example. I grew up in Washington, just a little bit north of here. And to me, home smells kind of like wet, if you can describe wet as a smell. It smells kind of like rain on pavement or like rain in soil or like rotting plants even sometimes. And sometimes I'll visit other countries or other parts of the US and I'll have that smell and I'll think, oh, this smells like home. So for me, that's how I would answer that question. What does home smell like to you? But please take a second to think about it, your own interpretation of home, whether that's walking into your door at home or landing on an airplane at home. Take a sec and share with your group what home smells like to you. Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we're gonna have to get moving. There will be actually more time to talk as well, so. Okay, so the reason we chose to ask you this question is because many of the smells that people think about are actually really culturally related. Maybe it has to do with your regional culture or the culture of your home or the culture of your family. The point is that lots of times people from the same culture will actually have totally different smells associated with home. So for example, I could ask this same question to my mom or my brother, which I have not done yet, and I think I will. My mom might say that home smells like maybe something we cook often that I don't even think about, or my brother might mention a laundry detergent we use, and that's just within the same family, right? So we kind of interpret this culturally related question really differently because we're all different individuals. And that kind of brings us into the culture conversation a little deeper. So this is an image of lily pads. Maybe some of you have seen culture as depicted as an iceberg with the top of the iceberg and then down below, but for these purposes, I like lily pads a little bit better. If you're looking out at a pond and you're looking at these lily pads, there are certain things you're going to notice about them if you're standing on the shore. And maybe you'll notice their color or their shape or the flowers, or maybe even the smell of the lily pads. And culture is really similar. If you're looking at culture from the shore, if you will, you're looking at all the sensory aspects. So you might notice what people look like, maybe what they eat, what they sound like, the language they speak, the music they listen to, all of kind of those sensory things. We'll call that the surface level stuff, right, of culture. But then underneath the lily pads, there's all these intricate root systems. There's microorganisms and roots that are going underneath the soil and fish that are swimming around. And it's this living, changing, breathing thing. And it's kind of endless. So if we look underneath those obvious aspects of culture, there are less obvious aspects. So things that we might think about or notice would be maybe what people think is funny, how people communicate, how people approach a task, some of those more subtle things, right? Can anyone think of another example of some of the things that might be underneath the surface level of culture? Yeah, that's a great answer. So an answer in the room was upbringing. Absolutely. Yeah. Family culture. That's huge, right? And family culture can change regionally or across the street. So yeah, that's a really great example. All right. So this kind of brings us to talk about social identities, because within culture, we're all individuals and we're all different. So social identities kind of interact with culture. We position ourselves within different social identities, and then we create cultures within those groups. So for example, let's look at age. I'm a millennial. I feel like millennials have a slightly different culture than Gen Z or the infamous boomers. I feel like my parents have a slightly different culture than I have. So we treat each other differently, we act differently, we speak differently. But the point is, we all belong on certain levels of these groups. So religion, for example, even if you might not consider yourself religion, you do have a religious identity, even if that religious identity is non-religious. And there's also power dynamics within these identities. So ability, for example, if you are an able-bodied person, maybe you don't think much about ability, but you have a power associated with that ability, versus people who have varying ability levels and might have less power in that category. So none of us are neutral in any of these categories. We all belong and group ourselves based on this. So that's how social identity interacts with culture. Okay, so we're going to listen to a little video and then ask some questions.
I come from a conventional middle-class Nigerian family. My father was a professor. My mother was an administrator. And so we had, as was the norm, live-in domestic help who would often come from nearby rural villages. So the year I turned 8, we got a new houseboy. His name was Fide. The only thing my mother told us about him was that his family was very poor. My mother sent yams and rice and our old clothes to his family. And when I didn't finish my dinner, my mother would say, "Finish your food. Don't you know people like Fide's family have nothing?" So I felt enormous pity for Fide's family. Then one Saturday, we went to his village to visit. And his mother showed us a beautifully patterned basket made of dyed raffia that his brother had made. I was startled. It had not occurred to me that anybody in his family could actually make something. All I had heard about them was how poor they were, so that it had become impossible for me to see them as anything else but poor. Their poverty was my single story of them. Years later, I thought about this when I left Nigeria to go to university in the United States. I was 19. My American roommate was shocked by me. She asked where I had learned to speak English so well, and was confused when I said that Nigeria happened to have English as its official language. She asked if she could listen to what she called my tribal music, and was consequently very disappointed when I produced my tape of Mariah Carey. She assumed that I did not know how to use a stove. What struck me was this: she had felt sorry for me even before she saw me. Her default position toward me, as an African, was a kind of patronizing, well-meaning pity. My roommate had a single story of Africa, a single story of catastrophe. In this single story, there was no possibility of Africans being similar to her in any way, no possibility of feelings more complex than pity, no possibility of a connection as human equals. I must say that before I went to the US, I didn't consciously identify as African. But in the US, whenever Africa came up, people turned to me, never mind that I knew nothing about places like Namibia. But I did come to embrace this new identity, and in many ways, I think of myself now as African, although I still get quite irritable when Africa is referred to as a country, the most recent example being my otherwise wonderful flight from Lagos 2 days ago, in which there was an announcement on the Virgin flight about their charity walk in India, Africa, and other countries. So after I had spent some years in the US as an African, I began to understand my roommate's response to me. If I had not grown up in Nigeria, and if all I knew about Africa were from popular images, I too would think that Africa was a place of beautiful landscapes, beautiful animals, and incomprehensible people fighting senseless wars, dying of poverty and AIDS, unable to speak for themselves, and waiting to be saved by a kind white foreigner. I would see Africans in the same way that I, as a child, had seen Fide's family.
Okay, so interesting video. That's Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's a Nigerian-American writer, and that was a TED Talk, or a snippet from a much longer TED Talk, actually. I do recommend you watch the whole thing. It's really interesting. It's called The Danger of a Single Story. But I'd like to take some time and discuss the prompts that are on the screen among the small groups. So thinking about that video, if you could share, what are the stories that the US tells us about people from your country? What are the stories you have told yourself about people from the US? And what are the stories that you expect to hear from people from the US about themselves? So you can speak in your small groups. We are kind of running on time a little bit, so let's do 5 minutes for these discussions, okay? Okay. I'm really glad there are so many good discussions going on. I literally feel bad cutting you guys off. I know that there are some really good conversations happening. We just have a little bit more to get through, and then we're going to go to a break. So I'm just going to keep moving on. So this is all kind of like one long activity discussion for us to like finally introduce the framework that we're talking about, which is called cultural humility. This was a theory coined by Melanie Turvalon and Jan Murray Garcia. They worked in the healthcare field, and they basically thought that the way they were learning about culture and multiculturalism in the healthcare field was not serving their patients in the best way possible. It was all about kind of like mastering culture in the same way you would approach, learning how to do surgery or something in the healthcare field. It was all about obtaining competence and mastery, and that kind of defeated the purpose of approaching culture, which maybe should be approached from a place of listening and understanding. So rather than looking at culture as something that we can perfect, we would encourage you to look at culture as a process. It's a lifelong process that you can take part in. You can learn about other people's cultures or your own culture by active listening, self-reflection, openness, curiosity. And if we look at it like something we can gain mastery in, then we really stop asking all those important questions, right? This whole approach is really important for international students because you're all coming to a new culture. And I think it serves you all better to approach this experience with curiosity, rather than thinking, I'm going to learn everything I can about American culture and I'm going to perfect it and I'm going to be the best at it. Because ultimately, that kind of defeats the purpose. You're here to learn and listen and engage. So please give yourself grace and time and space to learn about US culture, and then give that to other people too, so that they have time and space to share their own story, right? Okay, so that kind of wraps it all up. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then we'll get into the next part of the presentation. All right. All right, if you could grab your seats and we'll get started on the next part of the presentation. Thank you. All right, I'm going to introduce my colleague Calvin. He's coming from the Teaching and Learning Center, and he's going to present the next part of our presentation, which is all about academic culture. All right.
Welcome everyone to the coolest summer orientation ever at UW-Tacoma. Quite literally the coolest. Breaking some records this year, lots of records, maybe the coolest and rainiest in 30 years. So welcome, great timing, especially if you don't really like the heat. Anyway, so let's get started. Oh, again, you probably heard Kelsey say, but I'll say again, my name is Kelvin. I work in the Teaching and Learning Center, and in particular, the Writing Center side of our department. And I will tell you more about that soon. Let's see, is there a way I can make this black part like where I see myself and the other people so I can read? Oh, is there
It's
a mouse?
hiding.
Mice like to hide.
Let's bring it down
There
and
we
we can
go.
just move it around.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so we'll start off talking about expectations for class and coursework. It's really important to read as much of the material as you can. You might hear some people say that you don't have to read it. And while that might be technically true, I don't recommend that. I was once working with a student in the Writing Center who seemed like he sounded like he had just discovered the secret to life. And he was telling me, nobody reads this stuff. You don't have to read it. And he started to write something, and it was a book that I had read. So I knew how to answer the question. And he started writing the exact opposite of the correct answer because he hadn't read any of the book. So it really is important to read the reading. So also equally important, you need to cite the ideas from sources that you use. So those would be books, articles, and the internet. And if you need help with that, we in the Teaching and Learning Center are happy to help you. So I won't be very detailed about that today because we're short on time and you're getting a lot of information. This isn't really a fun topic, but we do need to briefly touch on it. Should go without saying, cheating is not allowed, but there are a lot of people to the highest levels of society who apparently need to be told this message. Cheating is not allowed. Also, plagiarism, even if you do it accidentally, can be seen as cheating. And so if it's something that you are having a hard time understanding, please reach out for help so someone can explain it to you better and demonstrate to you how to do it appropriately with whatever citation style you are using, because we don't want to see students get in trouble. Not all faculty are understanding in this regard. And I don't say that to scare you, just because you need to be aware and learn how to do it. Everyone needs to learn how to do it while they're a university student. And it's not always easy to learn, but it's something that takes practice. There are citation generators and that sort of thing. They can help, but it's sort of like learning to ride a bike. Like there's really no way around it. You really have to try it for yourself. Okay. Okay, let's talk about class participation. It's important to arrive on time as best you can to all your courses. And in class, faculty expect you to share your informed opinions about assigned readings and ask informed questions. Okay, so an example of an informed question would be, what do the authors mean on page 47 when they say, something, instead of like, hey, what is this book about? That would be an example of a question that is not an informed question, right? Okay. And an informed opinion would be something like, well, I read this article here, and I had this experience previously, and I think this, right? So it's important to connect your opinions and experiences to things that you are studying, right? So that's what I mean by informed opinions. And sometimes people will call this critical thinking, but we don't often talk about what we mean by that phrase. And so that's why I'm trying to break it down a little bit for you there. So classes, of course, will typically be interactive, and they will include discussions and activities. And you should do your best to participate in them. Many professors will either sort of deduct points, or if you're not participating. So I really encourage you to participate as much as you can in discussions. And if you are having a hard time with some of the discussions, it's, I think, a good idea to talk to other people in your course, or go to your professor's office hours if you have questions. We'll catch up to those later. Office hours. Okay, I can't see another bullet point, but I think that's the last one. So your professors, their role is to present ideas and concepts and to facilitate discussion and help you think critically. There's that phrase, think critically. Many professors are informal. They all want you to succeed. I did mention office hours a moment ago. These are designated times when your professor is available to answer questions or help you work through trouble that you're having in the course. Sometimes this can be intimidating for students. If you feel a little bit intimidated, and I'm not suggesting that you should, but if you do, that's understandable. And a good idea is to bring another student with you, if that helps. So office hours will typically be posted on the syllabus, which could be on paper, probably will be on Canvas, whichever, or probably both, really. And you should talk to them if you're having trouble understanding the course material, right? So especially in the summer when it moves so fast, right? You don't want to fall behind. So do seek help if you have questions. They hopefully will be flexible with deadlines if you have a major problem or disruption to your life. But they can't help you if you don't tell them about it, right? So even if it feels a little bit too personal and you don't want to talk about it, it's really the best way to handle the situation is to let them know as soon as possible if it's affecting your studies or ability to concentrate. Okay. And this is something that sometimes students don't always think about, but graduate school in particular, it's really important that you make personal connections with faculty because you really need those recommendations for the next things that you go out to do. That's how I got my first job out of graduate school. It was absolutely through a connection through a professor. It was an English teaching position at a university in Japan. They didn't even interview me. Somebody else from that program, the previous teacher in that position had been from that graduate school, and they just called the graduate school. And this particular professor said, "Hey, do you know anybody who could do this?" And that's pretty much how I got the job. So you never know, like those connections are really, really important. So that kind of shows you more reasons to talk to the professors, whether you understand the material or not, no matter how it's going. make sure they know your name, make sure you're talking and you are mentally there all the time as much as possible. Okay, let's talk about communicating with peers and other staff at the university. I think that as much as possible, try to say people's names as best you can. You know, I have a name that is somewhat challenging for some reason to America. It's not common. It's like, you know, Kevin with an L, and most Americans are not very familiar with this name. So I know this problem. It's really helpful if you can do your best to say everyone's name as best you can. I think that people really appreciate that. I always try to do that. Use specific pronouns if people reference them and ask for them. And nonverbal communication is something that is sometimes not often thought about, but it is common to look people in the eyes in American culture. And if you don't, sometimes they think that you might be either just shy or maybe trying to hide something, like you're being evasive, right? But I understand it's different everywhere. And personal space can be different too, typically an arm's length distance, especially during a pandemic. Maybe let's double it. It's important, though difficult sometimes, to make friends. And, you know, we have this phenomena here, sometimes known as the Seattle freeze. Not so much because of the weather, surprisingly, but people can be nice, but distant. So they might seem like they want to hang out, but they might just be trying to be polite about it. So don't take it personally. It's probably not you. It's just people can be hard to get to know. So I think I didn't talk to my neighbor in my current house for like 5 years. So don't take it personally. But you know, easy things to talk about are places to eat, weekend plans. You can always talk about the weather and how it's breaking records and how it's completely miserable. Don't worry, it should get better after the 4th of July. It usually does. It's just particularly bad this year. So here's some other university topics. Drinking alcohol is a common part of university culture here. I don't really know what it's like on UW, at UW Tacoma, because we're a commuter campus and there aren't as many, you know, like dormitories. We tend not to have big parties that, well, I haven't been invited to them, but that's probably because I'm, you know, 43. Okay. So also, you know, a serious one, it's sexual harassment, assault is never okay. Don't ignore it. Obviously don't do it, but definitely don't ignore it if you see it, and report it. Okay, so this part's really fun. We like to talk about some common phrases. And there's a really interesting part of linguistics, and I like linguistics. I'm a language teacher, called pragmatics. And that is the study of what do people really mean, right? And of course, all language depends on context, right? And sometimes one phrase can mean 3 or 4 different things, depending on the situation and how we say it, right? So if someone says, "How are you? How's it going? What's up?" Well, it depends. What could they mean? What are they doing? Okay, what do you think? What do they mean? Right, they're saying hi. Hello, right? This is not a question. Now, sometimes, I mean, it's common for me to ask my friends, because I do want to know, how are you doing, right? But if you're just walking around campus and someone says this to you, If you want to know if it's more than just hello, like if they stop moving, then they want to talk to you. But otherwise, if it's just so, then it's just hello, right? Okay. If someone says, let's have coffee, we should hang out sometime. Well, what do they mean? Yes, let's wrap up this interaction. If someone follows up and says, are you free next weekend at 12 o'clock? Then that's the proof that they do want to hang out, right? Okay. And if they say this, I'll have to think about it. This is not the answer you want if you ask someone to marry you, right? I'll have to think about it. No. Sounds great. Well, it could mean that. Again, depends on the situation, right? If you say to someone, how do you like my hair? Maybe you get a haircut and they say, it's not bad. Or like, it really depends on how you say it, right? It's not bad, right? Like, that's like, oh, that's better than I expected. Or it's not bad. Ooh, that's not good. It's bad. This one is really sort of more for maybe more formal interactions, maybe with faculty. If someone says, you know, you might want to consider doing this, or if I were you, I would, right? This is phrased as a conditional, like you have a choice. Yeah, you should do that. And this is really along the same lines. You really should do that now. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. So maybe you have an idea about something that, like, it's a new theory, or maybe this is I have a relative who has a lot of crazy ideas. And that's interesting is something I might say, although he would really think that I mean that it's interesting and talk to me about it for another hour. So I actually don't say anything, but this usually is not the response that you want, right? Okay. So like you, I have also been an international student. It's really important to be patient with yourself. Remember what your personal goals are. This is really a great opportunity. Can be a lot of fun, also hard work. And, you know, you're on an adventure. So do your best to see it that way. Hopefully you have a sense of humor, whatever it is. And you might find that you need to rely on that sometimes. Deal with stress as it arises. Yeah. So I know that when sometimes you have culture shock, but also I found that I really experienced something I didn't think of it as shock so much as culture fatigue. Like, oh God, I still have to deal with this, dealing with this again. But if I noticed that if I was having a bad day, just, you know, not really related to culture, just sort of personally, then all those things were much more difficult to handle, right? So whatever you need to do to keep yourself in good spirits, to take care of yourself, definitely do that. And so make sure that if you can, you know, get some exercise, like whatever that is for you. We have lots of hills in Tacoma. You can always walk up and down the hills. Try to eat healthy food. It is around, though it might be hard to find. If you like to cook, this is a great time to learn to cook or practice your cooking if you're not particularly good at it. And, you know, try to surround yourself with things that make you feel like like home if you want to. Like sometimes people want a really different experience and want to just like, I want to cut all the ties. I want to just reinvent myself, and that's fine too. Make time to connect with family and friends. I think we're fortunate in many ways that we can easily connect with people nowadays over Zoom, text, all that stuff. And this is probably the most important thing. If you need help, be sure to ask for it, right? So you've got a lot of dedicated staff at the university who are here to help you and make sure you are getting what you need in terms of academic success, mental health, wellness, safety, all those things. And so be sure to reach out if you are having trouble. And I guess kind of to wrap up this section, just be sure to challenge yourselves. And I think that you will have a good experience because you'll get out of it what you put into it. Okay, there I am, or there I was many years ago. So that MA TESOL after my name, that just means that I have a master's in teaching English to speakers of other languages. So my job at the Teaching and Learning Center, in particular in the Writing Center, is to help students whose first language is not English. I enjoy doing that very much. I am not a grammar Nazi. I have learned a lot about language, English language in particular. And so if that's something that you would like help with, I am usually here to help you with that, although I will not really be here in July, so don't look for me then, unless you're going to get on a plane and go to Germany or Greece. You won't find me here. But after that, I will be here. And before that, starting next week, we will, on Tuesday, we will be open for writing consultations. And then also, my colleague Dwayne is not here, but he is not pictured here, but Dwayne is a great guy, and he is he's the associate director of the quantitative center, sort of the math part of the Teaching and Learning Center. I should tell you where we are. The quantitative center is just on the second floor of the building, directly out the window over here. Not the one with the orange wrapping on it, but the the brick one. And then the Writing Center is in the Snoqualmie building on the second floor. So if you were to go across the bridge in this building, you would then be on the first floor, and then you'd have to go up another floor. Did we need to take a break at some point? Or should we just keep going? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about what the Writing Center and Quantitative Center do. I'll start with the Writing Center. I confess, before I started working here 12 years ago, I had no idea what a Writing Center was. I had never heard of it. But I really wish that I had heard of it, because I think it probably would have helped me a lot. There are so many things that you can do at a Writing Center. It's not just about proofreading or checking grammar. Those are all things that we can do, but the important thing to remember is that every single person who is a published author, from, Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, to your professors, all of those people who are published, they have editors who read their work before the public or their peers see it, right? It's really important that to improve as a writer, you show your writing to someone else, and you look at it together and talk about it and decide, what are some ways that I can make this better, right? These are habits of successful writers. That's just the truth. So if you want to improve your academic writing, or you just want to do well on the assignment, whatever it is, we really encourage you to bring your work to us, and we're happy to look at it with you. And that can include brainstorming. You're like, I don't know how to get started, or I don't understand the instructions. We're happy to read the instructions with you. We don't always understand what your professor means, but If we can help you with that, then we will. Sometimes we will say, please go talk to your professor because I don't understand what they want. But we're happy to discuss those directions with you. And this is what we do for a living, right? So we will give you the best feedback that we can. We can also help you with citations. We can help you with revision. All of these things are valid reasons to come to us. You don't have to have a single word written, or you can think you're done and just want someone to read it through with you. They're all good reasons to come see us. Over at the Quant Center, I cannot talk in much detail or professional expertise about like what these things are and how they work, but I know that there is a qualified team of professional and student staff who can help you with economics, accounting, business, chemistry, biology, physics, math, statistics, computer science, all these science-related type fields. And I will also say that though I don't know what their employment needs might be for the coming year, it is pretty common for them to hire international students. We do too, from time to time on the writing side. There also is something called peer success mentors, and they are basically like study skills consultants. So if you're having trouble studying or you need some ideas about how to go about that, these are good people to talk to. And I believe, yes, there is a little video about them here. So do I need to do anything special to cue this up? Okay. Okay.
Peer success mentors are available to help you become a stronger student and earn better grades. During one-on-one appointments, you can discuss study habits, set academic goals, and develop effective learning techniques. A peer success mentor can be someone to relate to you, since they're going through it too.
I'm at the point where I know what all of my classes expect of me, and like I'm on track, like I'm not behind on anything, but but I'm okay. I'm okay.
No, I mean, like, I'm doing well, but like also like this is just also
I'm
very
like,
rough.
Literally just like I feel so much emotion, and then like because like this is not good. This is not good. I want to be and I'm so sad because my classes are so good.
They will help you brainstorm solutions that work for you as a unique learner.
Yeah, so it seems like getting you a proper workspace is probably going to be a priority. The thing is, that's not actually going to be as difficult as it sounds. My desk is the place where I do my work. So I get up in the morning and I spend most of my day sitting at my desk because that's how much time I would usually spend, at school and at work. I know you kind of stopped using your planner. I did too for a couple weeks, and then I got back into it because I was like, okay, I need some structure here.
I need some structure, man. This is ridiculous. I need some structure.
They'll go over tools to set you up for academic success.
I like this one. This is kind of how I use my planner, is you have the day broken down by the hours, so it makes it easier to like actually chunk out like from 10 to 12, I have to be working. And then it also has this thing where like, you have things that you have to absolutely get done, like things you have to turn in, things you have to like get a grade for, but also it gives you some space to be like, okay, if like ideally if I was on top of things, I would also get these done too. But then you also know like if I don't get those done, it's not the end of the world.
Sometimes they're just there to listen and connect with you.
Man, adulting is so many steps to this thing.
Yeah. You have to like be responsible for your own stuff.
Right.
Weird.
Gosh, like my mom was really on it for herself and for all of her kids and her husband. Like, wow.
She did that.
She did.
There's someone you can meet with once, occasionally, or regularly on your progress to discuss what is or isn't working and make improvements.
It's possible that not all of this will work for you. Give yourself like one thing to work on first. Don't try and like, change everything about your life in 1 hour, because Not all of it will stick and you'll feel bad. Take it one step at a time, and if it's not working, just make a note of it, and we can, make a plan for something else too. Until we find something that works. Sound good?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Of course.
Appointments are made through the TLC appointment system found on the TLC website, tacoma.uw.edu/TLC.
Oh,
That's it.
break time. Fantastic.
Do you guys have any questions for Calvin about the Teaching and Learning Center or otherwise?
I will just add that there are 3 ways that you can work with a writing tutor. You can come in person and sit at a table with us, or you can work with us over Zoom, or you can upload your paper to our schedule, and we will provide you with written feedback. So someone will say, if you make a 1-hour appointment, the tutor will spend about 45 minutes reading your paper and writing comments on it for the rest of the time. And then we'll upload the feedback back to the same place where you put it so you can retrieve it. So those are 3 ways that you can get feedback from a writing tutor. And you can do that through the schedule, which right now I don't have a schedule to show you because we are, it's between quarters. And so I have to put the schedule up either by the end of today or on Tuesday after the holiday. Any questions? Great. All right. Nice to see you all. Good luck. Wish you well. I hope to see you before or after my vacation.
Okay, so for those of you, I don't know if you heard me over Zoom, we're actually just going to keep rolling. We have one more section of the presentation. It's UW Tacoma Campus Resources. And for that, I'm going to invite Akane up to present.
Okay. Hi. Okay, I'm going to talk about these slides pretty quickly. These are library slides. Yeah, so we have library over here where Kelvin and Dwayne works, and you have access to world-class library. So there's 2 library on this campus, and there's many other library on Seattle campus, and you have access to all of them. And here are some example of resources available. You can, I think what I found it most interesting is that if you didn't want to buy your textbook, you can check it out and then maybe take a copy of particular section that you want to refer to, and then for your own use, you can do that, things like that. And then you can check out laptops and graphic calculator and things like that. So make sure you utilize the resource. And I think there's also a graduate student section of the library where you can go to study or talk to librarians that are specifically dedicated to graduate students too. So make sure you check out all the resources available from the libraries. And this is a bookstore, is located on Pacific Avenue. And you can find out what books you need for your class by going to that website. And then you can order them online or pick up at a store or have them shipped to you. Here on campus, we have a resource called the Pantry. And we don't want, they offer free food and hygiene items for all students. So sometimes students have a difficulty accessing food, and we don't want anybody to go hungry. So please utilize their service. They have all kinds of food that are familiar to students from different parts of the world too, because our campus is very diverse. So lots of offering, and you can use there once per week and take up to 20 items each week from the pantry. And you can shop in person. So that's their website, and they're located in Dugan building. And they're open during summer too, I believe. I checked their website. This is PALS, so Psychological and Wellness Services. As Kelvin also mentioned, college life can be very, very stressful. So I was an international student myself. I came to US as an international student right after high school. And I did my community college, I did my undergraduate, I did my master's degree here. And I would say those time, maybe graduate school was my hardest challenge that I ever had experienced in my life. And I know that can be really, really stressful. So it's important to take care of your body by maybe exercising, taking good food, sleeping enough. It's also very, very important you take care of your mind. So body and mind, they go hand in hand. And maybe there's some stereotype possibly in your culture, oh, going to the therapy is for like crazy people or something like that. But here in the US, it's very common for people to receive therapy individually or group. So I would suggest you to check out their service. Just think about it as a way to do for self-maintenance. So, you go exercise, you sleep, you go to, things to, anyway. So I looked at their website recently, and then they have group counseling, and these are the topics that they offer: understanding self and others, build your social confidence, healthy mind, and mindfulness workshops. So they're very good skill, and maybe you can, learn from other students who participate in it too. So that's a group counseling, and you can also sign up for individual counseling. So it's all free and confidential, and they also offer crisis counseling and assistance. I would suggest you to check out their resource before your issue gets really big to handle. So use them as an intervention. All right, so this is their contact info. And student health insurance. So this is very, very important for those of you who are in Master of Cybersecurity and Leadership. You do not get signed up for this automatically. So you need to opt into this if you want to sign up for it. But otherwise, if you are coded as a F1 student in the university database, when you register for class, you'll be prompted to select quarterly coverage or annual coverage. And I think some of you have already seen that screen. So it's automatic, you have to purchase it. Insurance card will be mailed to your local address that is listed on your MyUW. You can choose quarterly or annual coverage. So for summer quarter, I think, you would purchase just quarterly coverage. And then when it comes to fall, you can choose to purchase quarterly or annually. If you already have US-based health insurance through your spouse's employer or something like that, you can waive it, but there's a deadline to waive. So make sure you do that. It's usually the same as the tuition due date. So 1 p.m. on tuition due date, which is July 8th for summer. One thing to keep in mind is, let's say a lot of you are MSBA students and your program ends in spring quarter, right? And spring quarter, when you're registering for spring quarter coverage, you can choose to purchase annual or quarter. So if you think you are not going to have an insurance during summer, because maybe you don't land a job right away, which offers you health insurance, you can keep your UW international student health insurance until end of August. So that's a good way to keep your coverage. So just remember that this option is available when you register for your final spring quarter registration. And then again, final reminder, if you are MCL student, you're not gonna get automatically enrolled in this insurance. So you have to opt in by emailing the iShip office, but let us know if you have any questions about that. Okay, so career development education. I know career is very important to you all, and we have a great resource on campus. This office is dedicated to support career development education of our student, and you can access their resource even after you graduate. So go to their website, create profile in Handshake. There's a portal called Handshake, and that's where you can upload their resume, and then they will review your resume, and then you can access all the listings of like internship offers or permanent job offers, or even on-campus jobs. So all of those job posting go through this portal called Handshake. So please check out their website and then register yourself there. They also offer like career fair too. So pay attention to their events offering. Okay, so that's our office. So me and Kelsey advised student with last name initial A through L. And I advise student last name M through Z. We have on our website, there's a place where you can look at our calendar to schedule 30 minutes appointment with us. And then we also offer Zoom drop-in twice a week. That info is on our website. To reach us, it's best to email us. So it's uwtiss@uw.edu. And so me and Kelsey and Cameron, all of us look at this, Cameron's waving. We look at this email account. So somebody is looking at it all the time. And then we will get assigned to your ticket. So it's best to email us there. Okay. And add us as a friend on Instagram and Facebook. We post our announcements there, particularly our events. And summer, we're not planning any particular trips, but for starting fall, we will resume ISSS trips and we go to fun places locally. So please join. A lot of the trips are free. So like entrance fee, we will pay. So you have already paid for international student fee. So make sure you take advantage of it and participate, and you will meet a lot of new friends that way too. So join us so today we did orientation, but there's a lot of things that we can't cover. Like I know a lot of you are interested in CPT and OPT. We will have a workshop separate from orientation because that's too much to include in the orientation. So our next OPT session is June 24th. CPT session is July 1st. We send weekly newsletter in fall, starting fall. So please take a look at that, and we will make all the announcement through that newsletter. We have Global Ambassadors program starting fall quarter. And it's a way for you to learn about different social justice topics in the US and around the world and hear from other students. You can share about your home country there, and it's a really fun way to meet other students. So please participate. And here are some final reminders. So if you're a grad student, make sure you register full-time every quarter, except summer. Summer is a vacation quarter. But this is your first summer, so you do have to register full-time. Please complete CVIS activation form if you haven't this is check-in form. So in the check-in form, you say, here is my address. Yes, I entered my address in my UW. I did register full-time. Here is my F1 visa. Here's my I-94. We call it check-in forms. Please make sure you do that so I can register your CVIS record. Middle of July, if you're a transfer student, we will give you a continuing, it's called continued attendance I-20. So we'll give that to you. I would say a little bit end of July. And make sure Kelsey has set up new international student info sessions. So again, there's so many things that we want you to learn, but there's not enough time during orientation. So Kelsey had made an online module in the ISSS portal. It's called New International Student Info Session. And it covers topic about it talks more detail about health insurance and things that you need to know as a UWT student. Please take that info session. You can submit it, but after you submit it, you can still read the content too if you go to ISSS portal. If you still need a Husky card, you can order it online by going to the registrar's office and you just upload your photo. And I believe they mail it to you, right? They mail it to your address. So please make sure your address is up to date. If you need help, again, the best way to get a hold of us is by email. So email us anytime. And that's all. And we ended right at 2 minutes before. Yeah, okay. So what are we done? Any questions? Some of you have questions. I will look at, yeah, so what should we do? Should I mute myself or no, I don't. I don't see no, there's no question in the chat. So yeah, questions from you all? Yes, it's by Zoom. Yeah. And if you go to our website, there's an OPT and CPT section. On there, there's a link.
I don't know if you all heard that in the Zoom room, but if you're interested in going to the OPT or CPT session, you can go to our website and join. Oh yeah, let me go back a slide. Or go to the website. Oh yeah, we can go to the website too. The OPT session is June 24th, so that's next Friday if you all want to join. Okay, so you go into Office of Global Affairs, International Student and Scholar Services, OPT. So our next session is June 24th. You just join this link at 12:30 on Friday. Same with CPT. You'd go back, learn more about CPT. Next session is July 1st. All right. Good question. Yeah.
I see that in my tuition, there's a new path. And there's YCMA. Yes. Is it mandatory or?
YMCA.
I think they're both mandatory. Yeah, so the question was about fees. I think you have a YMCA fee and a UPass fee. And yes, those are automatic fees. And then you have access to those resources. So on your Husky card, you should be able to now get on the bus with that card and get on the link and use public transit using your ID card. And that same card should give you access to the UWY. Yeah, unfortunately, if you don't need it, you still pay for it. It's one of those tricky fees that exists either way. Unless, again, this might actually be different for MCL students. So if you are in the MCL program, I actually don't believe you're charged this fee. I think, again, you have to opt in just like you do for iShip. So if you do want to take advantage of these benefits, you would want to contact the registrar and ask to be signed up for the UPass. Okay, so there's a question that the Husky card is not working on the buses, and you're an MSBA student, right? So you should have been charged the fee. In that case, I would email the registrar's office. Actually, yes. Akane made a good point. She thinks maybe your UPass will start on the first day of summer quarter. So that would be the 21st. And some of you say it works. So yeah, I think if it's not working, I would say go ahead and please contact the registrar's office. Okay. There's another question about opening a bank account. You actually should not need a social security number to open a bank account. To get a social security number in the United States, you usually have to have a job. For those of you who are in the MSBA program, you're going to start an internship right away. You're going to get an I-20 for that internship, and you are likely going to sign up for a social security number as part of that process. But you should not need a social security number to open a bank account. Your passport should suffice, especially at the bigger banks. Yeah. Oh, sure. About the bank account? Yeah. So just to clarify about bank accounts, you should not need a social security number to open a bank account. That's really what you should remember. If you are being asked for one, that might be a smaller bank. I would try maybe some of the bigger banks. They should not require a social security number for you to just open an account. I'm assuming a passport would be fine. Address proof, yes. I'm not sure what all banks would consider residential proof. That is true that a lot of banks do want to see proof of address. And usually that means maybe a lot of you just moved into a house or an apartment for the first time. And that might mean you have to wait until your first electric bill or utilities bill because they want to see your name associated with an address. So that actually might be a document you need to wait for in order to open a bank account. But that might change bank to bank. So just clarify what they need. Oh, the question is, do we have a bank on campus? We do not have a bank on campus, but I actually recommend, we have a couple of our student employees here who are going to lead the tour afterwards, and they would be a really good resource to ask about banks, what banks are close, where they open their bank account. They're both F1 students as well, so they can help you. Yes, and there is a resource on our website about banks as well, which we already have open. So if you go back to our ISSS page, current students, there's a tab called Money Matters. Yes. There's a lot of questions about opening bank accounts. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a question about the jobs that are on Handshake, which are considered on-campus jobs. So As F1 international students, you are all eligible to work on campus right away. That means you can, just Tacoma campus though. So you cannot work on the Seattle or Bothell campus. They're actually considered different institutions. So just the Tacoma campus. So if you're looking at Handshake, you can take jobs, but if you're working during the school quarter, you have to work under 20 hours per week. If you go over 20 hours, then that would be considered a full-time job, and that's not allowed while classes are in session. And part-time internships. So yeah, if you are getting offered a job that is off the Tacoma campus, so a non-affiliated employer, then you have to have special work authorizations. That's when we start talking about CPT, for example. That's a work authorization. OPT, that's a separate work authorization. So anything not affiliated with UW, you need authorization to work for them. As MSBA students, you're going to be getting an internship as part of your applied project, right? So that will be your main focus or your main job. I believe you can also work part-time on campus, but I actually suggest you speak with your academic advisor about that because I think the program might have policies about how many jobs you can work while you're doing your applied project. Okay, yeah. So Akane just.
CPT is optional CPT only after 3 quarters.
Yeah, so Akane just reminded me that as MSBA students, you're given a special benefit. You're given approval for CPT early because it's required by your program. Just for the applied project. Most international students need to wait 3 quarters. So if you want additional work, then you have to follow that policy as well, which means you have to enroll summer quarter, fall quarter, and winter quarter to then become eligible for CPT. Oh. Oh. So you're saying right now on Handshake, you don't have the access to it?
Yeah, when I try to do that, it says single sign-on is not found. Yeah, few of them has got it, but
Okay, so there's a question about logging into Handshake. It sounds like some people are having trouble getting access to the site.
I would say just email the career services.
And Akane is suggesting to email career services and ask maybe why your account isn't working for Handshake, because it should be working at this point that you can see jobs that are available. Yeah.
So about Handshake, we registered, when I tried to register, they registered me with Seattle and then I sent them a mail and they said for Tacoma, separately with Handshake, especially for Tacoma, and it's separate for posting. So they send you a push notification where you can then enroll. But if you're already registered through Handshake, which means you're under the wrong campus, then you need to email them to transfer you.
And who did you email, Pooja?
I spoke to Jane about it because I was not able to change from Seattle.
Oh, okay.
So she had to do that.
And that was through career. Oh, okay.
Basically, there's an email address for Handshake.
Okay. Okay, it sounds like maybe a good starting point is to email Cynthia about this, and she might be able to give you the contact information for someone at Handshake who can make sure your account is up and running if you're having trouble accessing it.
for English students, when does the medical insurance starts? Is it right away or?
Sorry?
For international students, when does the medical insurance starts? So is it right away or?
When does the insurance start? Let me see. The question is, when does the insurance start? And I believe we have the information available on our website. Where's help? Oh. I believe it should be starting soon. First day of summer quarter. So yeah, 6/21, that's on Tuesday. Your insurance should activate.
So we need to wait for the health insurance part.
Your insurance will activate whether or not you've received your insurance card in the mail. But if you are having trouble getting your insurance card, I would email iShip directly and make sure they have your correct address on file. And then it looks like we might have a chat. One sec, Cam, let me unmute you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, we did have a quick question. If we are planning on submitting insurance waiver forms to the website, maybe have already done so, when can we expect to see whether those are approved or not?
That's a great question. I would ask iShip directly. Their email is yeah, they also have drop-in times available. If you go to iShip UW, you can go to their main website and they have drop-ins, I think a couple days of the week. Or you can email stdins@uw.edu.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
With that particular item, how many times, or is there a limit that you go out of first?
Okay, yeah, so if you have an initial I-20 that says continued attendance, you should have a signature on page 2. That's your travel authorization signature. There's a date associated with that signature, and it's valid for 1 year while you're a student. So that means you can enter and leave the US using that I-20, right? Unless a year passes, and then you need to request a new I-20. Or if something significant changes, like I don't think this would be the case for MSBA students, but if you add a minor or you change your major or you change the program you're pursuing, otherwise that I-20 is valid for travel. Yep. Yeah. Yes, within a year, as long as that travel authorization is valid for the full year, you can leave and enter the US as many times as you need to. Good question. Any other questions in the room? Okay, yeah, great question. The question is regarding applied projects for the MSBA program. Who is the contact person? And actually, I believe Cynthia was the person helping you through your admissions process, correct? I believe the person you would talk to for now that you're starting your quarter would be Jamie. Any other questions? And what about the Zoom room?
Doesn't look like any questions are coming in anymore.
Okay. Zoom folks, thank you so much for joining. Sorry we can't share the pizza with you. We'll have to have it virtually. And thank you for coming. Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.